Very often when you're cooking a lot at home, you end up with lots and lots of, especially when you're using a lot of vegetables, you end up with sometimes lots of bits and pieces. And you need to have a few dishes that are good for using them up, that are also really good to eat. So this is one of those dishes. I have a big pile of veg, fritter, broccoli, peppers, little butternut squash, leeks, all sorts of things. And I'm going to just make a dish. Now you could use any vegetables you want in this really. It's only a case of just treating it like kind of a more technique. Look what's there, use what you have in the fridge, and there's not much really to go wrong with this one. And it's a great and very, very tasty little dish. The first job I'm going to do here is just take my grated courgette. I'm going to add a little bit of rock salt into it. The reason I'm using rock salt is because it'll easily enough rinse out of it. I'm just going to mix that through. You could use a pinch of normal salt as well, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to mix that thoroughly through the courgette and let it stand for about 30 minutes. In about 30 minutes, that'll start drawing some of the surplus water out of the courgette. Then I'm going to just rinse it off well and just dry it out a little bit. And it'll just give a much nicer texture. So just like that. The next job I'm going to do is just make a very simple little gram flour batter. So I'm going to take my gram flour into a bowl. I'm going to season that with a little bit of salt and pepper at this stage. You can put the liquid in, doesn't really matter. And a pinch of salt. And then into that, I'm going to add my eggs. I'm going to whisk that together. And then I'm going to light it up with a little piece of water. It's difficult to give an exact quantity because you're looking more for a texture. So I'm going to add about half a cup of water in here. Whisk it up well, and if I think it's a little bit light, or thick I should say, I'll just add a little bit more water. And then I'm going to just place that aside. Now to cook this dish, I'm going to put about a teaspoonful of coconut oil into my pan. You don't need much oil at all really. And to the pan, I'm going to add my onions. And I'll then just cook off for a few minutes. And at the same time with the onions, I'm going to add my butternut squash and my leek. Into the pan also, I'm going to put a little drop of water. And allow that to cook down. And just to get it render down and become nice and soft. And it's a good idea to start these with the lid on the pan. I'm getting more steam than anything. Now as those onions are cooking down, as you can see my courgette that I had soaked in a little bit of salt, all that water is going to come out. So what I'm going to do is just pop that on a sieve and rinse any of the excess salt off it, because you can see all the water has come off it now nicely. And so I'm going to rinse any of the excess salt and water off it, and then I'm going to just dry it out on the sieve and then kind of pat it down a little bit just to get it as dry as I can. Now, having allowed my vegetables just cook off and take on a little bit of colour, and just as a matter of interest, there's my courgette, which I've now rinsed under a sieve and very simply squeeze out all the water I can from it, just to get any saltiness out of it. So a little bit of colour into that. Next I'm going to add my peppers and my broccoli. I'm also going to add my broad beans. Now you could use peas, doesn't really matter. It's just any vegetables will do with this. I'm just going to let those cook just for a few minutes, just to kind of bring a few flavours together. a little bit of black pepper in here as well. Oh, and very importantly at this stage, I'm putting my ginger and my chili as well. Now with my vegetables, as you can see, I just let them infuse just for a few minutes there. And now I'm just going to take them off the heat with nice piece of warm in them. And I can just check some of my seasonings. You can put a pinch of salt in now. And now I'm just going to mix in my courgettes. I'm just going to mix all of these ingredients around nicely together. Again, this is great in a way, just using everything up. Like you could grate up broccoli, you could, there's no rules to this one. It's just one of those, you can put everything into it, use up absolutely everything. Now, I'm going to pour in all of my batter. This, just as a matter of interest, is completely turned off. I'm just going to mix my batter, that nice gram flour, which is a ground chickpea. So again, very, very high protein flour. And again, keeping the protein in your meal with arthritis is a very important consideration. Now, herb-wise, you could just use chopped parsley. It doesn't really matter. I have some lovely fennel. I'm fortunate that I have a nice herb garden in, so I can use a selection. But you know, there's no need to go running up and down the country or the town looking for all these different herbs. So what you have is this nice thick batter with lots of vegetables in it. So I'm going to finish this one in the oven. So what I've done is I've pre-prepared a little baking tray, suitable size, with some baking parchment or greaseproof paper. And I'm just going to pour all of this into the parchment. Spread it all out so it's not too thick. This is pre-oiled as well. I just oiled with a little bit of olive oil. Spread it all out so you have a nice even layers. And I'm going to bake this at an oven at 180 degrees for about 30 minutes, thereabouts. So we should have a nice set. You see, it's a nice option to fritters, which everything is fried all the time, and you know, they tend to be a bit greasy. This is essentially the same kind of thing, and you could fry this, of course, but it's nicer to, I find, just keep it like this kind of a cake more so than that, and you're not getting too much of the oil. So that's all ready to go in the oven. So I'm going to pop that in the oven for about 30 minutes at 180 degrees. And to make the sauce, I have about 100 grams of Greek yogurt, a selection of herbs. I've used a little bit of mint, marjoram, a little bit of fennel, and I'm just going to, again, you could use parsley, you could, it doesn't really matter too much. I'm going to pop that into the yogurt, and then the juice of half a lemon. Simply mix that about, and here's our pretty much instant sauce to go with our little fritter. So after 30 minutes of cooking in the oven, here's my big fritter. It's just taking it out there, and nice conveniently wrapped in that little piece of greaseproof paper. So what I'm going to do is just simply turn this out on the board. Nice and quick one motion. Just remove the greaseproof paper off the top. Oh, I could have used a plate to do that a little bit more neatly, but yeah, I probably rushed a little bit. But anyway, here we go. That's the fritter finished. And to plate up, all you do is take yourself a nice plate. Put a nice neat slice off your fritter, or two even. And as you can see, it's all just vegetables and lovely. I'm just going to pop those onto my plate. What's lovely about doing the fritter like this way is that you end up with something that's not greasy, because very often you get fritters, even vegetable fritters, and they're just very oily. Whereas when you're cooking it like this, that doesn't become such an issue at all. Finally, I'm just going to generous spoon, my Greek yogurt and herbs, my lemony Greek yogurt, and that's all you need for this dish. Perfect. And I actually have a couple of fresh herbs there as well, which I'm just going to put the leaves around, and you just get those little hits of flavour then as you go. That's a little bit of margarine, and that's all we need. A nice little fritter.